As long as you're able to keep your groups intact, you can make really interesting illustrations out of just doing whatever the hell you want after those two groups of light and shadow. So this is your lightest color, these are your midtones, and then this is the darkest color that we have. And what basically, these are the three planes of light that you have to keep in mind of. You'll always have the lightest color, the midtone, and then the shadow. And the sphere is used a lot because it can very easily represent these three planes in a easy to understand shape. Now, what I usually do with light and shadow is I always start with a mid-tone. So let's just do that again. Let's make an ellipse. So this is my mid-tone. My mid-tone is like a nice gray, and then my highlight would be something lighter than that, and then this is where the light is hitting it. And then my shadow is darker, like so. And wherever the light hits, let's say that our light source is over here, and hits the sun. So that's where our light source is. Anything that is, of course, being hit directly with the light, it's going to be like a very light shade. And that is first the cast shadow, which is the shadow that is cast by the object that is blocking the light. Most of the time, if you have an object like a sphere, or technically anything with a height dimension to it, there's always going to be a triangle of space where light is blocked. This little area over here, and wherever is the bottom of that triangle, depending on if you only have one source of light, that bottom of that triangle is always where your cast shadow is going to end up. And then another facet of lighting that will make our sphere look beautiful is bounce light, which is basically something that is slightly darker than your highlight, your lightest color. Let's make it a little bit lighter. A little bit darker, and then we're just going to go over the edge here. And there we go. So light bounces off of things, and that's the reason why we have something called bounce light. This is something that if you look at modern day anime, you might have noticed that in shadowed areas of, let's say, the hair, for example, they're going to have a slightly lighter color at the edge of it, and that is representative of bounce light, and it just makes any scene look a lot more lively. So that's why when I draw, I just like to have fun with it. We just wanted to talk about our sphere here, our best friend, the shadows that it casts, and every single other part of it. Actually, let me edit this a little bit because I made a mistake here, because our lighting isn't on this side, but rather on this side. It would actually look a little bit more like that. So that is one thing to keep in mind. The placement of your light source will also affect what the shadows look like. Another thing is that if you want to further divide this cast shadow that likes on the ground, you want to make whatever is closest to the sphere into like a darker color. I'm pretty sure there's actually like a formal term for this, but I don't remember what it is. But basically the principle it remains the same. And then the further away it gets, the softer these shadows will be. Let me use a proper blending tool here. These shadows are going to be a lot blurrier, and they're also going to be lighter because it's transitioning away from the shadowed part that this sphere is creating. Oh, like so. So this is a more accurate representation of where this light is. Now, of course, you can always add another highlight onto this ball just to make it look shiny. Lighting also is different depending on what the material of this ball is. Let's say that this is a shiny metal ball that has, let's say it has some marks on it. Let's say it's like it's hit some things in its life, kind of like that. Now, if you want to texturize a metal ball, this is another little tip and trick when it comes to lighting, is that if you have things like this, like scratches that make divots along the surface, what you can do is you can either make a highlighted, okay, not too bright. You can make a highlighted portion along the one end of it, and it will automatically add depth to that scar. So now it looks like this little scar that we made on our lines. It looks a little bit more realistic. So this is just something that I like to do to add a little bit of depth to my details. Let's do the same over here. And then let's say we're gonna do the same thing over here. Here. And then here. You can do the same thing, by the way, with a darker color as well. So let's say, for example, you have light on that side, and then if you add a darker shadow on the other side, it's going to look even more realistic. So always, if you're going to make a divot on anything or something with like a depth or that's like engraved into the material, always try to find a way to apply 2 different values on either side of them. And now it looks like our metal ball kind of looks like we rolled it through gravel or something and it scratched itself up a bit. But it's still a shiny little metal ball and we're proud of her. So play around with adding more values to your shadows and adding some textures to your shadows and familiarize yourself with it. My idea is I want to try and play around with the shadows a little bit. But keep in mind that this is the kind of lighting that I want to achieve. Very direct sunlight. So we'll see if we can do something like that and just play around a bit. What I do keep in mind is that I really like mixing cool and warm tones. For this one, I'll see if I can do like something like a green sort of undertone here. And then we'll see if I like how it looks. So let's say that our undertones are a little bit more teal-ish. We'll see if this is something that we like. And then for I'm trying to go for like a more muted color. There we go. And then the direction of the sunlight that I want to achieve is over here, because I want this side of the face to be in sunlight. So let's say that this is where the light generally is coming from. I actually do not want this to be mostly shadow. I want this to be mostly light. So what I'm doing here is just putting everything on a hard light layer. Hard light, there are some people who do not recommend using it because it could be very unpredictable. I like using it because the effects that light and shadow have on a hard light layer, it works very well for my intents and purposes. But yeah, for now, I think we've decided on our lighting scheme. This like nice yellow and blue combination. I really like this light blue for the colors. I might make it just a bit darker, but it's always easier to start off light than to start off dark.